Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming today. Today, we're going to talk about how you can engage your community in the work of ecological monitoring. I am Maggie Gaddis, the Executive Director of the Colorado Native Plant Society. The Colorado Native Plant Society is a nonprofit organization dedicated to furthering the knowledge, appreciation, and conservation of native plants and habitats of Colorado through education, stewardship, and advocacy. In our workshop today, we have some goals. We want to get to know each other in the Colorado Native Plant Society and identify common land management challenges and needs, and identify volunteer engaged solutions for those challenges. And finally, to find out how we can help each other develop stewardship programs. The Colorado Native Plant Society was founded in 1976. And I think it's interesting because we're talking today about the Rocky Mountain Native Plant Materials Program as we move along, but the inspiration for our founding is similar to our modern day challenges. They arose from a workshop on threatened and endangered plants held by the Forest Service and the Audubon Society in early 1976. In this day and age, CONIPS looks like two overarching organizational patterns. We have committees, and these are only just a couple of the committees that I'm going to be talking about today. But these are statewide groups that really are the thought leadership in certain areas of plant management here in Colorado. So firstly, I just didn't want to forget, so I put the Grants and Scholarship Committee. We have 4 funding opportunities. The Alice Eastwood Scholarship is for a high school student pursuing a degree aligned to our mission for their undergraduate degree. And we also have the Marr and Stein Camp grants, and these support research, and one specifically for research in rare plants. And finally, we have a mission grant, and the mission grant is really open-ended to any kind of community projects and inspirations that are mission aligned. So in terms of how our CONIPS members engage in ecological monitoring, we have different areas for that. So the Field Studies Committee is really organized to focus on the Adopt a Rare Plant program and monitor rare plants. And if you have rare plants on your landscapes, that would be a great way we could engage together. We partner with the Colorado Natural Heritage Program for our Adopt a Rare Plant program. And the Field Studies Committee also does phenology. So they train people to monitor phenology using the National Phenology Network and Budburst. Our Education Committee is really engaged in outreach, and we have lots of training workshops. We see a lot of attendance from professionals in our training workshops. So for example, Gwen Kittel, author of the Willow Flora, regularly provides workshops. We use microscopes for willow identification. Great for anyone who is engaged in wetland delineation. Other training workshops might focus on other species or other techniques for either plant propagation, plant identification, seed collection, etc. Our horticulture committee is really in a realm that I won't talk about today because I gave a talk with city horticulturalist Alex Crochet on that at COSA in 2022. But all around the state, our members organize native garden tours. We have a native garden certification program. We do seed shares, winter propagation, and native plant shares. The last 3 of which we often do with our partners, like Wild Ones on the Front Range and Extension, and others. Finally, the bulk of our conversation today will focus on restoration. For the last few years, the Colorado Native Plant Society has been in agreement with the Region 2 United States Forest Service to develop and implement the Rocky Mountain Native Plant Materials Program. On the ground, what we do for this is we scout and collect native seeds on United States forest lands. And I decided to come today. I offered my talk because I know from just talking with my colleagues all over the state that everyone, municipalities, open space, and larger management landscapes are currently moving towards projects that involve seed collection for restoration. So before we get into that, I want to note that our 2,000 plus members are all over the state to engage with you. We have 8 chapters currently, and in 2025, we will have 3 more chapters. And so, especially through the Rocky Mountain Native Plant Materials Program, we've been able to really expand our reach. And it's really not only mission driven, but also a practical drive, right? That we want to have local communities everywhere where we are hoping to collect seeds for restoration applications. So, on to the meat of it, the National Native Seed Strategy and the Rocky Mountain Native Plant Materials Program. We work in partnership with the Forest Service, Donna Sharrock, the Region 2 vegetation ecologist, and the Colorado Natural Heritage Program to develop and implement this program. The next few slides I'm going to go through are purposely aligned to the specific language in these documents, the National Seed Strategy for Rehabilitation and Restoration. And you can access this BLM webpage to find all the reports that have been published on what I'll be talking about now. So the National Native Seed Strategy will provide more coordinated approach for the stabilization, rehabilitation, and restoration treatments. It provides a framework for actively working with the private sector in order to build a seed industry for rehabilitation and restoration. And this will help us address future challenges so that we will be better prepared to respond appropriately to large-scale disturbances and other stresses that threaten important plant communities and the ecosystem services they provide. These stressors include the spread of invasive species, altered wildfire regimes, habitat modification, land overuse, and climate change. The strategy and vision of the National Seed Strategy is to put the right seed in the right place at the right time. And the mission is to ensure the availability of genetically appropriate seed to restore viable and productive communities and sustainable ecosystems. In the next couple slides, I'm not going to read this, but I'm going to point to lots of legislative movements that this strategy also provides guidance for. And on the right side of the panel, this is the first time that we really see the word native plant associated with our land management strategies. And this strategy supports the importance of healthy native plant communities and recognizes that they provide habitat for animals and ecosystem services. They have also intrinsic and irreplaceable biotic value. There were several pieces of legislation in Colorado in the last couple of years that lend support to these statements, including the CPW bill that gave Colorado Parks and Wildlife the opportunity to manage pollinators and rare plants. Also, we have non-functional turf and pesticide legislation, and there was the pollinating insects habitat study bill that really kicked it all off a couple of years ago. So on every level of management, we are seeing this collective movement for a seed strategy, for a restoration plan. And so we just want to note that we're looking for plants that are used in ecological restoration, and we would never collect any rare or listed species or commercial timber species or non-native species. And everything that we create, i.e. a seed bank, that will be developed through the strategy will help land managers select appropriate materials for use in restoration. So there are four main goals of the strategy. The first is to identify seed needs and ensure reliable availability of genetically appropriate seeds. We work closely with CNHP and our Forest Service partners to identify these needs and then to develop seed collection target species lists. In goal two is to identify research needs and conduct research to provide genetically appropriate seed. So we're just a couple of years in, and right now we are starting to have more research initiatives started. Currently, we have a common garden study, but we need the seeds before we can study them. In goal three, we're developing tools that enable managers to make timely informed seeding decisions. And we can really give a shout out to the Colorado Natural Heritage Program for working on goal three. The data collection tools that they have developed that we employ in our seed scouting and collecting engagements really are making this knowledge accessible to all land managers in the Region 2 area. And finally, goal four, develop strategies for internal and external communication. My presence here today is indirect action for goal four. I think CONIPS does an excellent job of really linking the conversations together. We have so many contacts and so many boots on the ground that it's easy for us to help weave the fabric of communication through the National Seed Strategy and the Rocky Mountain Native Plant Materials Program. So in concluding this part of the talk, success looks like botanists to collect seeds, researchers to identify and develop appropriate seed, farmers to grow it, nurseries and seed storage facilities to supply it, and restoration ecologists who know how to put the right seed in the right place at the right time. So as noted before, that part of the presentation is based on these documents that you can spend plenty of time looking at as the weather gets colder. Other interesting reading opportunities is this Native Seeds in the Marketplace. This is a great publication that just came out, and another here, Restoration Ecology. All right, so here in the Rocky Mountain Native Plant Materials Program, where the boots meet the ground, we run seed collection opportunities throughout the state. And we're doing this for restoration and to ensure that there is appropriate seed available for future restoration needs. And this might be post-fire or invasive plant management, erosion control, wildlife habitat, etc. So our work as a society it all begins with scouting. So we are everywhere. And our favorite social network is iNaturalist. And so what you see here in the top right is this is how we use iNaturalist to support the program, right? When CNHP seasonal crews go out for seed collection, that's a big deal. We drove 12,000 miles last year between CONIPS and CNHP to obtain these seeds. But the more you can get involved in scouting, the reduces our ecological footprint. So more and more I've been, and all of our partners and members have been using iNaturalist to affect the scouting environment. So what you see here is I've explored on iNaturalist, Poaceae, only research grade observations in Colorado. And so all of this orange dots, these are all occurrences of native grass, not all native, some are non-native, of grasses here in Colorado. So we start to explore these when we know we're going somewhere. Like for example, I just got back from Comanche. So we looked down in Comanche area, we would drill down and we would contact people who made observations to find out what they knew about those populations that they had photographed, so we could drive around less and spend more time seed collecting. We also use SciNet for a similar purpose. You can use SciNet, southwestcoloradowildflowers.org, to look for coordinates where herbaria specimens have been digitized and are located. And you can also, there's great photos, learn a lot about species identification. Internally, we use Survey 123 connected to Esri for scouting, for scouting, excuse me, for submitting scouting information. But as far as the relationship between CONIP's members and the Survey 123, our interns work in Survey 123, but our membership really affects this environment by participating in iNaturalist. And so then finally, we built a species ID training over the last 2 years through our restoration committee and through now our internship program. And as we go through this slide show, we'll go pretty quick, just show you some of the target species. And we are really working to develop a photographic reference that allows our volunteers to know exactly what species they are looking at. And if they want to tell us exactly what species they're looking at, they're going to have to be able to photograph an iNaturalist the references in the flora of Colorado. So for example, if your first question is, are the spikelets on or unarmed? You hopefully have taken photographs of the spikelets. And so we've given examples of those photographs. This is from Wingate's new vegetative keys. So we're training people how to be sure to make reliable citizen science observations for scouting in our program. We also show pictures of lookalikes, and that helps us to determine if we have to look at some specific character between one species or another. All right, let's go back to this slideshow. And so finally, hopefully I've encouraged you to engage with us in our scouting opportunities. And finally, another deeper part of that is phenology. When we're gonna be coming to town, we need to know what is going on with those local plants. So we're using the same kind of networks to ask people, what is going on with these plants in your neck of the woods? And that doesn't apply probably to our COSA audience here because you're in direct connection with the landscapes you're managing. But for us, that's just another way that we can help. So what can you do and what can you engage other people to do, like your residents and constituents, to help you enact similar programming that I am thinking you are likely to do in your landscapes, no matter how big or small. So you can have scouting hikes where folks go out and take a look together about what's going on in the local plant communities. You can train people to use iNaturalist. You can talk about CONIPs and let us help you. And you can join our thought leadership team. Our restoration committee is largely composed of professionals like you who sit around to talk about the things that we are talking about today. And finally, we have an internship program, and this helps us to get project leaders in all areas of the state to help enact seed collection opportunities. All right, well, thank you. And I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Carlin Perovich, who is the forest ecologist for the GMUG forest here in Grand Junction and way beyond. But before I do that, here's my email. Reach out if you'd like. And Carlin's going to talk to us about some specific restoration projects that require seed and that initiatives like this help to support.